Ha! So you thought we forgot about dairy? Us, Punjabis? Did you know that the state of Punjab has the highest consumption of dairy as compared to the rest of the states in India? Well, that's us. We love our dudh malai. But that's not all that comes from dairy. Let's milk this topic further, shall we? So, all right, let's take a deep dive and into दूध है wonderful पी सकते हैं. But is it wonderful? Was it wonderful for you always? What's your thing with what's your relationship with milk, Kanika?
Hi, Sakshi. So, I knew,
Hi.
yeah, I knew you couldn't help yourself, right? So you had to break into a little, yeah. Well, that does bring back a lot of memories, that jingle. And my relationship with milk was good. We were friendly pals. We didn't have issues growing up.
Okay.
How about you? Did you have issues?
Yes, I had issues.
Okay. So you didn't like drinking milk?
I like drinking milk in summers.
Okay.
But not so much in winters. So hot milk with sugar, I did not like. And hot milk with Bonvita was okay. But cold milk with ruafza was not okay. Let me just clarify that as well for summer season. Whenever milk was too sweet, it wasn't nice. And then it was only later as an adult that now I'm okay with milk. I must, establish that I am not, it's not an enemy. It's fine. I like milk now, but I like it a certain way. I like it without sugar. But I did work my way around, that daily 2 glasses or daily 1 glass of milk. I have poured it down gamlas in the house.
Well, who hasn't? I think I can think of a couple of people who've done that, including my brother.
Have you done that?
No, I haven't. Not me.
Did you tell your parents that your brother did that?
No, I think I remember this one time we were visiting my cousins and they were posted in Bikaner, also an army family. And both my cousin and my brother went out into the driveway and they found gamlas and they both poured it. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Why are you doing this? Like, Mama will find out. I didn't say. I didn't go and spill the beans, but they did that. Yeah.
I don't think my brother even knew when I've done that.
Oh.
Yeah, I went to the rooftop and then there was this sad gamla which seemed dry and I thought no one would notice and I just poured it down. So I'm sure a lot of people, have done that. But it was later, I think, in my teen years that I started mixing a little bit of coffee, which was regulated by my parents, in my Bonvita milk. Something that I did in my 20s as well. So I did start liking it because it added a sort of bitterness to my Bonvita wala doodh.
Right.
And it was less less sweet. I could control. I did not add any sugar. It was only Bonvita and coffee.
So
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. I like Bonvita. And that actually is so when I was living in Delhi as a college student and I would go back home, my parents would stock Bonvita knowing that I'm coming back because obviously, once my brother had also left, it was just them. So they didn't need Bonvita. But I loved it so much that like you, even in my 20s, I was drinking Bonvita wala doodh.
I still have Bonvita. I'm in my 30s.
I don't have it anymore.
I don't drink it. My husband drinks it.
Acha.
Sometimes.
I had it when I moved to the US. I bought it a couple of times and I did have it. But eventually I stopped. I think it was just the sweetness of it. I didn't need that much sugar anymore. So I kind of stopped. But this is interesting. So it's the reverse for me. I did not like milk with just chini. My milk had to have Bonvita. I like it like that. And garam doodh with chini is fine. But our mom used to come, and I have this really nice memory of waking up early in the winters, and the first thing she would come and give us were glasses of milk, hot glasses of milk, and then in the evening also we had to have a second glass of milk. So the morning thing was always a hot glass of milk with sugar, or if there was Bonvita, then Bonvita. And that I didn't mind. But I still have a little hesitation in drinking unflavored milk, just milk by itself. Unless I'm,
Okay.
feeling like I have some acidity or something that I need to just cool my system down, then I might take a swig or two of just cold milk. But I usually have it in chai, have it in coffee. It's still mixed with something.
Okay. Yeah, I won't always do that. Like, I would also have cold milk on its own if I need to calm my system down and all that. Otherwise, no, not really. But I have to mention that summertime, like I have established before, my father used to love kitchen appliances.
Yeah.
So come summers, my dad would make milkshakes. So he would make mango shake, banana shake, and sometimes coffee shake or lassi. So, but we'll come to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you, as kids, also make these shakes? Like, did the, responsibility eventually switch over to any of you, or no, not really? It was his domain.
So when we were going to school, we would leave at like 7:45 or 8. Uh, and that time it was only hot milk. Most of the times hot milk or cold milk, depending on the season. And I was just struggling with it all the time. और मुझे बोला जाता था नाक बंद करके पी लो. And that is what I hated. So I used to have it that way. When we stopped going to school, that is when my dad had the time to actually, before we went to college, before we left for our, respective colleges or whatever, he would just stand in the kitchen and make those shakes and all that. But that was summer season. And, in summers, most people wake up early and you have so much time and all that. So that is when it happened. So not every time. It didn't happen like right from the beginning.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just generally, like we would make it, sham ko. Say everybody wants to have mango shake, so the kids go and make it. Like if you want to have it, you go make it. Kind of a deal. That was the deal in our house. Once you learned how to handle appliances, now it's up to you to get things done. So go do it.
I don't know if I've shared this with you, but my brother, once we shot a video with our digital camera, and it was called Cooking with Goga, and he puts on a weird accent of a very South Hall Punjabi English accent. I don't know if I'm describing that correctly, but he did this entire thing where he's like talking about the mango, and I think as kids, all of us wanted to have a cooking show, didn't we? So
Yeah.
that's what happened. So I am holding the camera, and he's in his banyan. It's summertime in the night, and we're making sinduri mango shake for some reason because that is what was in season and was what was in our fridge.
Right.
So it was hilarious. I don't know, for us it was hilarious. I know people will just think we are weird.
No, that sounds like fun. Yeah. Acha. So what was your other question? I know you were trying to go back to some question before I side railed you to talking about milkshakes.
I was asking whether it was always wonderful.
Oh, milk.
Did you always? Yeah.
Yeah, for me, yes. Sorry. I'm quite a milk baby. I love milk. Yeah, I could drink milk any time of the day, provided कि उसमें कुछ है. Not plain milk, चीनी या कुछ डाल के. I can drink milk anytime.
Good. That's good. You are a good child.
Yeah, no, so...
So what about now? Sorry, yeah, go on.
So just one more anecdote, also from college. So there was a friend of mine, and I used to go to their house pretty frequently when I was an undergrad. And her mom would be so happy because I would say, "Oh, can I just get a nice glass of milk with like, if you have Bonvita or coffee and chini or whatever, just something." She's like, "Oh wow, you love milk." I'm like, "Yeah, I do."
Not so much, I heard.
She would be very happy. Auntie would be very happy. Yeah, I do drink milk, but now things have changed. So I don't drink glasses of milk anymore. I drink it in my tea. If I make like coffee, then I end up drinking more milk because I like a milky coffee. I don't like a very dark, watery coffee. And I'll make milkshakes once in a while. Like now when the mango season begins, I'll make a few. I'll make mango shake, and then Thandai is the new thing because I think you and
Oh.
both of us have been having thandai. So I put a little
Yes.
bit of milk in
Like,
that.
oh yeah. Do you mix it? Do you mix water and milk for thandai?
Yeah, I do half and half most of the time. Sometimes I even just
Hmm.
drink it with water, but generally I do half and half. So half milk, half water. Not all milk.
Same here.
Huh.
I also do that. I also mix like half water and half milk.
Hmm.
And like I was telling you earlier this week, I was telling Kanika that isi bahane mein doodh pee rahi hu
Huh.
because I usually don't drink milk anymore. Except for a chocolate milk, like a hot chocolate sort of a thing late at night after dinner sometimes, but that's also very rare for us. But yeah, in the morning after my yoga, I'm having thandai.
That's great. Actually, so
Yeah.
milk, no matter what your relationship with milk, I think every household in India has that story that the day starts with milk. Whether it's you getting a glass of milk, your mother giving it to you, और द दूध वाला knocking at the door, उसकी वेट हो रही होती है कि दूध नहीं आया अभी तक, चाय कैसे बनेगी या जो भी कुछ होना है उस दिन के काम कैसे होंगे क्योंकि दूध नहीं आया है.
Right.
So who brought milk to your house?
We have never had packet wala milk in my parents' house. They've always had a gwala coming. I don't remember what the person's name was, the one who came before Jitendra. Jitendra is our doodwala right now since the past, I think 15, 20 years, if I can remember.
Okay.
And जितेंद्र को डांट भी पड़ती है मम्मी से एंड मम्मी सेड कि जितेंद्र दूध ठीक नहीं आ रहा है ये मतलब क्या हो रहा है एंड देन ही वुड जस्ट से माय भैंस इज लाइक सो इट्स भैंस का दूध या सो माय पेरेंट्स इन माय पेरेंट्स हाउस इट्स भैंस का दूध a lot of time I think the packet milk was cow's milk, right? Or a mix of both. From in our area, I'm from Delhi, NCR, and we had Mother Dairy as well as Amul. I think Amul now sells a separate cow milk, and that's pretty good. My in-laws have that. But why I mentioned packet wala doodh is because it distinctly was the taste was distinctly
different.
It was just distinct. Yeah, it was different. So the taste was like something we could notice कि ये दूध अलग है. And my parents did not enjoy the taste of that milk in their chai. Chai is very dependent on the kind of milk you're using. So
right, it is.
That is something that did affect their choices, and हमें आदत पड़ गई थी. So we've always had that milk. But a very brief thing about gwala, about the doodwala. So my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, they lived all their life in Lajpat Nagar. But actually no, when they got married, they were in Jalandhar. And from Jalandhar, when they moved to Lajpat Nagar, now that area had a lot of Jhangis, Multanis, and other people post-partition because it was a colony that was formed after by the government after the partition to provide housing to all those people. But my grandparents came from Jalandhar. They were living there. And then my nani, in the morning at around 4:30, started noticing somebody saying kheer ghinwanjo, and she would be like, who's making kheer and talking about it at this hour? And then finally she asked her neighbor like a few days later that I hear this every day. What is this kheer ghinwanjo? And apparently in Multani, kheer means milk. And ghinwanjo is probably like milk, doodh le lo. That sort of a thing.
That's really interesting. I should check. I follow a couple of people on Instagram, from my Punjabi project, and they do share vocabulary from different parts of Pakistan and Multani, Sindhi, and all that. Maybe I should ask them. That's really interesting. So so that's their story about milk early in the morning, and Jitendra is still your parents' doodwala. And does he come on a motorcycle with like the with the big canisters hanging on the side? Like, does he come like that?
Right, he does. Even his son comes sometimes. Who's finished his schooling and all that. Sometimes he would come.
I see. Interesting.
The only thing that's changed right now is that 20 years ago, Jitendra didn't have like headphones from his phone or wasn't on call on times. He didn't have a mobile phone like that.
Right.
That is the thing that's changed. That Jitendra is now always on his phone.
Oh.
He's high tech now.
Yeah, I think that takes away the interpersonal thing, right? Like otherwise you are just focused on the person in front of you. Now you're talking to so many different people. Maybe all of them waiting for their milk. Yeah, in my parents' house, things, kind of transition. I think they tried out a couple of doodhwalas wherever they lived, because they lived in a few different places. But eventually they decided that the milk cooperatives, they just started buying that milk. So
okay.
When they lived in Rajasthan, the milk cooperative was called Saras. So we eventually switched. I remember in school, we switched to just getting milk from Saras. And there was like a neighborhood kirane wala who also used to do milk. So you just tell him how much you want and he would either deliver it. If he's running late, just go pick it up. It wasn't too far. In Hyderabad, there's Vijaya. So in Andhra, there's Vijaya Dairy. That's their state thing. Now my father lives in Bhopal, so they have Sanchi, which is named after the Sanchi stupas. But actually two interesting dairy stories. So one is Heritage in Andhra Pradesh, and that's run by Chandrababu Naidu. He started it back in the 90s. So he's the politician who's also chief minister for Andhra. And Heritage is also very good quality, really good quality milk, good quality milk products. And then in Punjab, my grandparents, there was some very enterprising, still is, there are enterprising local dairies that have transitioned because consumption, I guess, is high or, demand is high, whatever. They transitioned very early on from this motorcycle delivery format to actual tempo format. So they would have a driver driving and they would have a little tempo, like a covered, I guess the closest approximation is like a pickup truck, but it's just a more indigenous design. And so in the back, they would have huge, big containers of milk and delivery people sitting in the back, and they would just stop and deliver it from there. So straight early morning, the milk, cows have been milked and it's coming straight to you from there. So that was another new format. Yeah, acha, this is nice. Very neat and clean and no single guy on a motorcycle. Yeah. So our relationship to, at least in my parents' house, to cooperatives is pretty long and steady. We've relied on those for a long time.
Yeah, like I wasn't unfamiliar with it. My grandparents always got that. They did try out their fair share of gwalas as well. And they wanted to get cow's milk instead of bhais wala doodh. And so yeah, they eventually switched completely to packet mother dairy milk. And there was a mother dairy, which is I think also part of the, I think it has both, right? It has Safal, and Mother Dairy has Safal, and which is fruits and vegetables, and it has milk, its own milk, and then there is Amul. So I don't know their relationship. It is a cooperative. I don't know their relationship, but they must be under the National Dairy Board of India, NDBI. So they are all over.
Yeah, could be. Or yeah, I know like every state has its own cooperative. So I don't know if the state cooperatives all come under NDBI. Do they all come under that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Yeah. Okay. मुझे अभी ध्यान आया है. You remember that vessel when they take out milk from their canisters, these दूधवालास, उनका बड़ा different सा वो होता है. क्या होता है?
डोलू.
उसका नाम डोलू होता है.
हाँ मेरे को तो ये याद है कि उसका डोलू ही होता है, I think वो.
Like with a long horizontal, long vertical sort of a stick and with a hook at the end.
Yes. Dolu.
I can draw it for you.
Yeah, I think that is a dolu. I'm checking as I'm talking to you. And yeah, I think that's a dolu, but we can check more. But मुझे तो यही याद है. वो measure है. It's essentially a measure of the milk.
Okay, so we checked this with a trusted source. I picked up the phone and called my mother. My mom also picked up the phone and called Jitendra. Jitendra, उस बर्तन को क्या कहते हैं जिससे तुम दूध डालते हो? मैडम जी, उसे लीटर कहते हैं. जो छोटा वाला होता है उसे आधा लीटर कहते हैं. Of course, he had his own set of questions about why my mom was suddenly interested in the liter measure. That story for another time. Oh, and that dolu that Kanika mentions here, it's the steel or metal milk can or vessel which comes with a handle. Quite common in our households until the advent of milk in packets. Now back to our chat. Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah.
But yeah, what happens when the doodh wala comes? What happens? What's the activity like in your house?
The first thing is
or when the packet milk comes.
So clean the packets because the packets can be a little dirty or messy or whatever. Just clean them quickly, empty them into a big enough patila, and then put them on the stove to boil. Put it on the stove to boil, and so that's the first activity. And
don't leave the kitchen. Stay there.
Yeah, just turn it really low so that if you're doing something else, it's not going to spill over, boil over. And my grandmother, my nani, has these coasters, these glass coasters that she got. So I think again from Germany. You put them at the bottom of your vessel that you're using to boil.
Okay.
And when it's reaching that boiling point, because of the activity, the glass starts, quivering and moving. So it makes a noise. So that calls you back.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you know ki, oh, ye boil hone wala hai. So that's
very interesting.
She's all about efficiency. So she bought this, I guess, back in the 60s when they went to Germany. And she's been using it ever since. So
गैस है, गैस के ऊपर ये कोस्टर है.
नहीं, पतीले के अंदर है. गैस के ऊपर तो पतीला है, पतीले के अंदर है ना. तो जब वो दूध उबल रहा है, उसकी सारी वो एक्टिविटी, it's getting convection currents are forming and things are moving. Then the thing starts.
Yeah, now I get it.
Then it starts quivering and makes a noise.
That's genius.
Yeah, it's such a simple solution to knowing, just being alert. You just have to listen for it, and you can continue doing whatever else you're doing.
Right.
So that, otherwise, you have to be in the kitchen or somewhere nearby when the milk is boiling. So that was an activity, and I think the boiling process, I mean, I always did think once we started getting this cooperative milk, and you study all this in school also. I don't know if you remember in your science curriculum until 10th.
Right, in 10th.
Yeah, you study why milk is boiled and the whole process of pasteurization and all of that. So you do wonder, ki, Sarah, it's all been pasteurized. Why are we doing it again?
Right.
Right? Like, why are we doing it again? But I think it's a force of habit.
But do you do it now? Like, I will come to the process, and I made notes, before this, and I made a flow chart.
Okay.
Of what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, before that, do you do that now as an expat in the USA?
No, not at all.
Do you boil milk?
No. I only do it when I want to make. Only when I want to make dahi, I'll boil it, and then only if I want to make paneer, then I boil it to. That's it, but not for general use. Like for my.
Same here.
Yeah. Because it is all pasteurized, and I'm not getting malai. So, if you really want to get, that's the attraction. I think if you really want to get malai and stuff, yeah.
But that also changes with homogenized milk. So packet milk is homogenized milk. And that often people say that it doesn't yield as much, but then you could have different kinds of milk. It might be low fat or toned, as it's commonly known in India. But that's just one thing. But even I don't boil milk anymore unless I'm making paneer or kheer or dahi.
Right.
And with dahi, I definitely have to boil it. Like, otherwise, it doesn't work here. But so obviously malai is something that people are after, but why are they after it? Because I think most households do make ghee. My parents still make ghee. But that's just, I'm skipping a few steps. What else comes out of it?
Okay, yeah, so let's go. Malai. So you boil it and you let it cool And when you let it cool, that's when the actual fat of layer sort of congeals and forms right on the top. So that's your malai.
So there are two products.
Hmm.
So the doodh, obviously, you can go three ways. This is according to my
Flowchart.
flowchart. There
Yeah.
are three ways.
Huh.
You can drink it as is or use it whatever way in chai or whatever. There is the dahi route. You can boil it and you've already boiled it. You made dahi out of it. Dahi की लस्सी बन सकती है फिर जो भी है कड़ी बन सकती है जो भी बन सकता है. That is another story. I in my flowchart after lassi and dahi, I put an infinity sign.
बट ये तो तुम बहुत आगे चली गई ना तो नहीं आगे नहीं चली गई हाँ
I'm just getting away with the milk part because
Okay.
I want to talk with you and you tell me about the cream part. The last thing for the milk is paneer.
Okay.
That I've written.
ठीक है.
And paneer का आगे sweet या savory use है. But हाँ, coming back to cream. What is next after cream?
So what is next is so in our house and I think any like at least the family households all of them they keep collecting malai. So you keep collecting it every day, every day, every day. And I love the process of lifting malai from the milk. So in my household, like my nani, I don't know if my nani, I've seen my dadi do it. My nani also, I think. You just wash your hands properly and then just lift it with your hands because it's such a nice heavy thick layer. Because spoon won't se karne lagoge, then you'll get a lot of extra milk. So you don't, and also your fingers act as a natural straining device. They will strain the extra milk. So I love that. I love the feel of it. It's so soft. So yeah, it's kind of soft.
Yeah, you made me think about how satisfying that was to do, and notice how the top layer of the malai, if undisturbed, is just completely dry, and the bottom is just pillowy, soft, and lovely.
फिर वो साइड में भी लगी होती है थोड़ी बहुत तो उसको वो नाइफ से पील करते थे लाइक दैट वाज अ कॉमन यूज ऑफ द बटर नाइफ की साइड से पील करनी है एंड देन लिफ्ट इट आउट अगेन.
Recently, I told my mother I just made her switch to silicone spatulas, like to definitely include, and that really helps in this process now. But yeah, बहुत आवाज करते थे. अगर my mom would use a chamcha, it will be like so annoying against the
steel
patila, steel patila. Yeah.
Yeah,
so yeah, that is another story. Yeah. So what happens then?
So they keep collecting the malai. अब it depend करता है क्योंकि जैसे my grandparents were so जो उनकी डेयरी है लोकल डेयरी वो तो उससे ही लेते थे दूध. अभी अब पता नहीं क्या करते हैं. My parents, on the other hand, would get this cooperative milk. So if you're getting 2% and maybe you're mixing one packet of full fat in your 2% ka pura quota. So the quantities of malai vary, right? And depending on how soon your dabba of malai gets full, then it gets converted into ghee typically. Because makhan thoda kam use hota tha. But my grandmother, dadi, and I think even my nani will typically also like if they want to make makhan, I think they'll order extra milk from the daily consumption. And then they'll make makhan with it because that's a entirely different process. But malai can lead to ghee because once you've collected enough malai and then you cook it, you can get ghee.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure like most listeners are Indians. If they're Indians, they would be very familiar with this entire process. And then as kids, I remember जब घर में घी बन रहा होता था, I used to hate the smell.
Yeah.
Now I don't mind it as much, but yeah, it depends on I think how old it is or I don't know what it is, but yeah. So malai से मक्खन निकल सकता है, but buttermilk is also a byproduct from that मक्खन process.
Yeah.
और हमारे यहाँ बहुत कम बनता था मक्खन. But then it was just easier, I think, for my working mom to just put it all in a huge kadhai on the gas and usko halke pe rakh do and then it starts melting and then you keep stirring it and it would take her like she would start in the evening and then just let it be half done in the night and then restart it. So then in the morning, I think by whatever morning time, it would be done.
Okay.
And then the entire process of straining the milk solids and, you know, extracting the entire ghee, and it would take a while for all that.
Yeah, so I think in my parents' household, they did it in small batches. So it was never like a huge, one-time project. तो जितना इकट्ठा हो गया तो थोड़ा सा बना के यूज कर लिया या जो भी and yeah, but my dad nani makes ghee. In fact, there was some person who really loved her ghee, so he said मैं आपसे ही लूंगा, आप ही बना के दो मुझे. She was actually giving him ghee. Yeah, it was like a little side project for her. I think she stopped doing that now. So मुझे कुछ याद आया था, but now I've forgotten. Anyway, we'll come back to it. So the smell of ghee, sorry. And I think that does irritate a lot of people. I've noticed so many people, like they want to use ghee in their food, but then they have so many questions. Why does it smell? What do you do? Is there a certain, ghee is going to smell. It is a milk product. वो milk solids जब burn होंगे, अगर आप तड़का भी लगा रहे हो, जब आपका घी, अब जैसे winters में the ghee solidifies, and when you put it in to melt it, and if you burn it, it will start smelling. So you have to be careful. The milk solids.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I never was like put off by that. Right. It is okay. Like cooked ghee, but then when the malai started melting is when the smell was sort of overwhelming for me, and I was like, open all doors and windows. I can't take this anymore. So that is when that happened.
And I think I wanted to just make a comment for, I don't know how many people will find us who are not Indians. And I have often, noticed there is a huge distance in the Western world, especially in the US. I don't know if it's still true of Europe, but in the US, there's a big distance between the food that we eat and how it's produced. So people have forgotten processes like these. These are very simple, and they're everyday, things that happen in an Indian home, or used to. I don't know of a contemporary house now, like how much of this is happening. But in the houses that we grew up in, it was pretty common. So, if milk is milk, and we also get it through some, whether it's a cooperative, which is industrialized, or if it's a local farm, which would be the equivalent here, like a local farmer giving you milk. Malai is just cream. And makhan is your homemade butter, and ghee is your clarified butter, and you can actually make all of this on your own. You don't have to go buy it in a store, and we almost never bought it at a store, except makhan. I think even in our house we used to buy it off and on because my parents weren't really making too much makhan at home, or had the time, or had the inclination. But malai was ghar ki, and if you had a recipe that said you need cream, say you're making a certain cake or you're making a certain dessert, then you sometimes might go and buy it. And it's kind of difficult to source. Like back in the 90s, it was not easy to source a can of cream or like a,
no, you have to go to a dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in living in Noida, we were lucky to have, because that's an area where Noida is in Uttar Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh has a lot of dairy farmers and a lot of Yadavs whose traditional business has been of milk. And we used to have a lot of dairies around, and then we always had very nice access to very nice products like paneer and malai and all that. And the fruit cream banani hai, and that was a dessert at the time, and now I can't think of having that, but yeah. All that, yes. But coming back to the ghee process, I just have one more thing. What did you guys do, or did you do anything with the strained milk solids? Did you ever use that, or was that of any
I don't think so.
relevance?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think I remember what you're going to say, but I don't think so.
Yeah, so we used those milk solids, and only if they were like not too overcooked, and if they were okay, if they were just light brown in color, my mom would just use it with add some whole wheat flour, which is atta, and some sugar later to make a panjiri, which is like a small fudge sort of a thing. And you just set that on a plate, and then once it's set, you just cut it. So it's like a small fudge. What was really nice about is that how toasty the whole wheat flour, when it was toasted, it was really nice and nutty and earthy,
Probably a
and it was
caramel.
rich because of the ghee. Yeah, very caramel like. So that was a delicious dessert or a treat for us. But we didn't always make it. Sometimes the house help would take it, and she would just add sugar, and then she would take it back home as dessert for her kids. But yeah, panjiri was really yum at the
Nice.
time.
Yeah, I
And
don't
it's
remember.
different from that panjiri with dry fruits. It's not the same. This was also called panjiri.
Oh, okay. I don't remember having it. No. Okay, so the other things. I mean, we've done the malai makhan bit and ghee. One other thing is khoya or mawa also, and that's like so often when we were making, gajar ka halwa or gajrela. When we were making that, that's the one recipe where we did add khoya. And often, if you don't have it, or if you don't want to use store bought khoya because you're not sure whether it's pure or not, then we would cook down the milk and make khoya out of it. But very rarely made at home. I don't know if you guys made that.
No, we never did that because I know. I think a lot of yeah, cooking, like the choice of what is cooked in a house, also depends on the cook, the person who's cooking. My mother has typically not been fond of mawa, so even now when we at home make gajrela, we don't add mawa to it, khoya to it, but my dad likes it, and now my bhabhi quite likes it. So now they'll get it, and then mummy will be like, fine, I'll put it.
So, like all the talk, like you were mentioning of getting things from a local dairy, like if you had to source khoya and other stuff from a local dairy. I remember there was one dairy in Jodhpur, and it was a treat to go there. Like it was a little far away from our house. It wasn't close to our house, but we used to it was called Doodh Bhandar या ऐसा कुछ नाम था. And we would go there specially to pick up paneer because their paneer was so soft and moist. And while we'd be there, we'd also then get some dahi from them. And he had this always at the counter. So there's one man who was always sitting there and pretty heavy set, like a typical lala, if I may say so. Because yeah, that's an easy way to describe someone like that. Would have a huge parat and with really thick set, very nice set dahi, and it looked so good. So that was one memory.
Right.
Yeah, it was such a treat.
Yeah, it was. And like this reminds me of course, in episode 1, I think I mentioned the lassi made in Punjab and how it's so typically thick, and on top of it is a layer of malai, on that malai from the dahi, I think. And that's really delicious. And that is something I remember seeing also in Old Delhi. And you do get that sort of lassi, and you do see those sort of parats with like a lot of dahi. And even if they take out a chunk, it just stays like that. You don't see any whey, you don't see any water from that dahi, which happens in our house, I think, when we disturbed, like I think you mentioned it, like a colony of dahi, colony of bacteria.
Right.
So when you take a scoop out of dahi that's homemade, it'll soon, I think, after a while, be filled up with the whey of the dahi.
Yes.
And then then as you start consuming it, it just fills up with that water, the watery whey that's there, and that's harmless. That's actually not bad for your health, and you can have it.
Yeah.
But it's, you never saw that in dairies when they would have these very clean cuts of dahi from that parat, right? That was just so fascinating and so tempting to look at.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's also because they finish it in one day. Like you're only seeing that day's fresh yogurt. You're not seeing something that's from
Right.
the last, from the previous night or the last day. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know how much of like artificial stuff they use, because I do know that industrial production of yogurt, the culture is very complex. It's it's culture with a lot of other stuff put into it. So it's not just your plain yogurt culture that you might use at home. And
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, it is like one particular strain, I think, of the the culture. But I was reading about it while I was writing that article on dahi, and uh, there was, I think, I read something about real world bacteria. So what's made at home, the jag and the jamun and the khatta, whatever you call it, all that has obviously been passed down, or you got it from your neighbor or something. It survived. So that bacteria, like your sourdough, is real world bacteria, and that's like wild, and that is, I think, also sturdy to make that dahi. What I mean is that they want good looking dahi at all times. They want rich dahi. Of course, it depends on the kind of milk you're using. It has to be, if you want that quality of dahi, which is thick and creamy, the milk obviously has to be thick and creamy. And not to say that, not that dahi from low fat milk won't be nice, it'll still be nice. But then that culture, I think, is that may vary. Sometimes we don't get good dahi from homemade culture, like jamun khatta. Sometimes dahi nahi jamta hai acha, and that is a thing that irks a lot of people. But yeah, there are ways to get around that, and there are a few tips.
Right, like the industrial production. I mean, the culture is kind of replenished. It's new culture every time, right? I think yeah. So that is important. What was the other thing? I was thinking about other milk products, and another memory, like your dad. I remember in one episode we talked about how your dad loved to cook down milk to get khurchan.
Yeah.
Right. So when we would make kheer, my brother and I, there are a couple of things that we learned early on. We learned how to make tea, so we became like easy runners for our parents, and they were like, चाय पीनी है तो जो भी सामने है उसको बोल दो कि भाई चाय बनाओ. And and then the other thing we loved, because we enjoyed eating it also, was kheer. We would make kheer also. And the one thing that my brother, I think, was very particular about, or I somehow have this memory, I can check with him later, is, he was really insistent कि उसको अच्छे से काटना है. खीर को अच्छे से काटना है, और जब काटती है तो वो you can tell, because there are marks on the side of your vessel. कहाँ शुरू हुई थी, where you began, and then how slowly you're going down. And with each drop in level, you're leaving a deposit of this milk, dried milk on the side. And we loved eating that. So when it was...
And that is what khurchan is.
Yes, and that is what khurchan is. It is so delicious. And especially when it's sweet, like after you could... Typically, we like in our house, we would cook the rice for a long time in the milk before adding sugar. You don't cook it down with sugar. You add sugar later. But yeah, that khurchan was so delicious, and so I was just remembering that I have to mention it. That there's so many different ways of enjoying milk. Yeah.
Right, which reminds me that in our house, when somebody is sick, when somebody has a like a cough and cold or something like that, my mom would make besan wala doodh, which is supposed to be had at night. You have it and then go to bed, or you'll get thrashing. No, they didn't thrash us. I'm saying that is how important it was. You have hot milk and you sleep. It'll help you clear out your nasal passages and all of that. But it wasn't always like that. I didn't like the aftertaste of milk on my tongue at night. I have to brush and all that. So no, that didn't really work for me. But then that is another delicious way of having milk. Is just like a spoonful of gram flour, roasted in ghee, and then you just add dry fruits and a splash of milk, and then boil it a few times. Add cardamom. It is delicious. So that was something very frequently made during winter time or when somebody had a cough or cold or something like that.
Yeah, so we made besan ka sheera, and it wasn't as thin as you are describing. So you're saying besan wala doodh. My mother would make besan ka sheera, and it would also be because it's kind of thick and it has some ghee in it. It has besan and of course milk and sugar, so it would just coat your throat as you're drinking. It has that tendency to cling, and that was very
Yeah.
soothing. Yeah, and then I also remember chuare in the winter times. So you know
Right.
each person would get like one chuara in their glass and hot milk, and that was really nice. I liked that. I enjoyed that. You know the end of it because you get that chuara and you can bite it and eat it. And so chuara is I mean, it sounds very much like almost like a chuha or something, but it's a dried date.
Date.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a dry date, and it rehydrates as it's sitting and gets really nice and plump and juicy, but still has a good bite when you eat it. So,
Right. Here in the UAE, I get like date milk. It's we used to have elaichi milk.
hmm.
यहाँ पे date milk मिलता है काफी.
Oh,
I've never had it. I think it'll be too sweet, so I never really had it.
maybe you can make some at home. Just try experiment with it, like a date.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
maybe a
But
milkshake.
remember, I don't like milk that's too
Yeah.
sweet. So
Uh,
that's a lost cause.
yeah, but I mean, I'm just thinking like all this talk of drinking milk at night. You know, there's like a moon milk kind of a revolution now, and
Right.
also
Yeah, I think
like
the West is.
catching up, and turmeric has become so popular. Everybody wants to use it, but I
Yeah,
mean, we
haldi wala
can't.
doodh.
Yeah, we can't imagine our life without it, right? Like turmeric and doodh is so common.
Right.
Even now, like my father still drinks a small cup of milk and eats like a piece of gourd with it at night.
Oh,
He's
nice.
my grandmother and him, they both do it. So does most people in my family used to do it. Maybe they're dropping that habit now, but I remember everyone used to do that. So
Yeah, my mom and dad have like a small cup of milk at night sometimes,
hmm.
but not always. But they were doing that pretty often. I think if they have an early dinner and there's time between them going to bed, then maybe they'll do that. But yeah, all this we've counted a lot of stuff, and this uh, obviously we started with talk of milk during our childhood, and that reminded me of this very weird sandwich.
Which
And
one?
it was malai and chini ka sandwich.
हाँ
It was
तो
so weird,
hmm.
but I liked it. Was it weird
It's
with
not
you?
weird for me. So I don't know if it's
Huh.
weird for anyone else listening, but we used to do malai and chini on like paronta. So make a paronta and
Yeah.
उसपे भी डाल के malai chini. We used to make another thing, and that we did with dahi, not with malai, which was sandwich bread, dahi, and lots of Bikaneri bhujia, spicy Bikaneri bhujia, and then
Nice.
another slice on it on top. That's delicious, and I still make it.
Dekho, Priya Krishna is making dahi toast on Bon Appetit and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course, all of us kids, I think, grew up doing such things, and like our parents, with their ingenious ways of making us eat things,
right.
have tried all sorts of things, and that it comes from there. So my husband, he introduced me to dahi with haldiram aloo bhujia, which
Okay.
is something I dismissed. First time he did it in front of me, I'm like, what nonsense, why are you doing this? This won't be nice, this is weird. And then I had a bite and it was so yum.
Yeah, so so I introduced it to my husband, and he had never had this. And whereas in my household, my parents would make it, as a nice snack for us. So, but I use Bikaneri bhujia. I don't use aloo bhujia. I use Bikaneri,
Okay.
and the spicier the better.
That's nice too.
Sometimes I
Oh yeah.
add something more to it, like maybe a chutney or something.
Right.
Yeah, but like malai is this delicious thing that you can have on paranthas. And so I do want to talk about, just briefly, like we've talked about all the ways in which milk gets processed in our households. But is this whole concept of, Punjabis ka khana cannot be done without ghee and butter. Is that really true? Like, how much in reality, on a daily basis, how much makhan do we actually use?
Not anymore. And I say that for my parents as well. They also don't have as much makhan and whatever. So my parents do cook their dals in ghee, like the tadka for dal. Tadka will always be in ghee. But then no. This reminds me again of that entire thing about Delhi restaurant food being the representative of Indian food and the makhani sauce. Makhani is buttery.
Right.
So the butter chicken, the dal makhani, and all those things are fairly recent and post partition stuff. And that's not something that is that's not probably a representative, I think, of what Punjabi food is. There's so much more to our food. Of course, certain traditional stuff does, like a sarson ka saag with a knob of butter or ghee on top or something is obviously it goes very well, and that's something we have. But that's something very traditional, and that's something very seasonal as well.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I agree. Same here. My parents didn't really ever cook in ghee or, they usually cooked in some kind of cooking oil and then switched to olive oil also in between a few years ago. And tadka and everything was done in oil. So they never had this ghee wala tadka, except for maybe a few things that you're cooking. If you're making like a mutton recipe, one on the blog also is my dad's favorite. So things like that, then they would use ghee. Or if you're making halwa, so all the halwas are made in ghee. So for things, keep it for those occasions, but not for everyday cooking. And even butter, like I think it was more when we were kids. Like I guess the use was higher, but not so much as adults, and not really for my parents themselves, not as much. Like buttered toast and stuff, not really. They kind of gave up on that eventually. They did enjoy cheese. My parents always liked cheese. My mom was very fond of cheese. She loved a nice cheesy pizza. And she also liked, cheese in sandwiches. So I don't know what your relationship with cheese has been, but we love cheese.
I like cheese, so I now quite like cheese, and I do have some favorite cheeses that I really enjoy, and I would put those on a platter when friends are visiting. It's been a year, I haven't done such platters,
Yeah.
but but then coming here, I discovered feta cheese, which is also delicious, salty, briny, but I would, I think, add some cubes to my, or just crumble some on my salad when I would pack a lunch for office. And I would spread it on crackers or toast or something. So I like the spreadability of feta cheese. But then there are some others, like Old Amsterdam is something one of our friends uh, introduced to us, and I really love that cheese. So when Vijay's parents were visiting last year, this time, Dad really loved, the cheeses that he tried, and then he said, "I'm going to take some with me back to India, and why don't we get these in India?" But then I see now with certain very enterprising dairies and all that in India, in North India especially, I do see that they are making those kind of cheeses. They are making cheddar and certain things, of course, in India using
Right.
whatever's available there. So that's really nice. I think there's a lot to be explored there by
Yeah.
Indians.
Like, so growing up, our association with cheese, we actually ate a lot of cheese growing up because in the army you have a ration, and in the ration you get canned cheese. So it would be from different places, sometimes whatever they could find, whether it's Amul or Verka or whatever. So this is, I'm not sure about what kind of cheese that is. So it's obviously something
It's a
that
processed cheese.
it's a processed cheese, but like what kind? Because there's so many kinds that we now know exist in the world, which we didn't earlier. But we loved it, and we would, our mother would just maybe slice a veg or so, and that would be our like evening snack. So we're back from school, and I remember we were in Wellington, which is in the Nilgiris in Tamil Nadu, and come back from school, and you've done your lunch, done a bit of your homework, and you're going out to play. So you get a wedge of the cheese and you just eat that in your hand and go play. And there were crows. I remember I have this memory of a crow trying to swoop down to grab that cheese.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crows can be aggressive.
Yeah, crows can be aggressive. So I remember all these canned cheese that we used to find. I think in the 90s that was very common, and you could just grate those for your pizzas and use those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember dried mozzarella cheese for pizzas, and pizza bases also being sold. And
Local bakeries में होते
which
थे
were
pizza bases.
local bakeries, and they were very kulcha-like in some way. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I
that
don't-
also.
Actually, I don't remember mozzarella. So I just remember Verka and all these other things. They all used to make a very standard kind of cheese. I don't
melting cheese hota tha. And it was like processed melting cheese. But yeah, that sort of cheese was also there. But mozzarella, I think I remember from my early 20s. So that was pretty late.
That's like the 2000s, yeah. Okay.
That is when I started making stuff.
Like in the 90s, I don't remember it.
No, that was, Amul cheese ke cubes or slices or can. That is what I also remember.
Yeah,
But we never really we never had it as often. And I think my parents didn't think too much of it or something, or didn't really try. So they never really initiated us into too much of that. But we enjoyed pizzas. We enjoyed such cheesy garlic breads and all those things when we went out to eat with them.
Yeah, and paneer is like technically it's kind of a cheese, although I think equating it to cottage cheese is not quite accurate. It's not exactly a cottage cheese, but it's kind of a cheese. And another cheese.
Like curds.
It's like milk curds just pressed together, and they haven't been processed further. So I think you kind of stop the process. Yeah, I'm not very good in this theory. But I remember another cheese that we had in Kashmir. And I think that's called kalari. I don't know if that's the pronunciation, but like my dad was there and we were visiting him. And I remember it being a pretty tough and stretchy, like chewy thing. And I think that's the fault of the cook, of the cook, because it was cooked in a way that it's not typically cooked. So it was in an army mess, and their whole thing to do with it was to try, use it instead of paneer. So to cook it as they would cook paneer, and that kind of toughened it further, and it wasn't the right way. Because I've seen recently like Anita Tikku from a Mad Tea Party, and I've seen some other people that they just melt it or toast it on on a tawa or on a griddle, and then use it.
The paneer or the one?
No, the kalari, the Kashmiri cheese. So it almost reminds me of a halloumi, like how often if you serve halloumi, you kind of fry it or toast it on a griddle and then use it. So that's what I kind of understand it to be. But that's the other thing, because other than paneer and kalari, which was just a brief encounter, I've never had another Indian, cheese.
I have.
Oh, what have you had?
So in DU, I had some classmates, I had some, friends who were from the Northeast. And I remember after winter vacations when we met and we were in a Western music society, we used to sing songs and go for competitions. Also came to your college.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah. So this friend, I think she's from Sikkim, and she is now a baker. We follow her on Instagram, Imcha Adila.
Yeah.
So she, I think, brought from home a yak's milk cheese, and it was hard. It was dry, and she says it keeps us warm. And that's like you have it and then you won't feel cold, and it was winter time. And we took a bite and it was just chew it, and maybe we didn't have the taste for it.
Yeah.
But it was, some of us didn't like it, some of us were like, okay. And I remember having a tiny bit piece, and it was interesting. It wasn't strange or anything. It was nice, and it was like it was tough though. It was very dry and tough. It probably has been preserved for longer and all that. So that was very interesting. That's my only encounter of a cheese-like thing.
Nice. That's like Parmesan, right? Like Parmesan is hard. And if you...
But वो फिर भी आप chew कर सकते हो. Even if it gets like a little crystalline, you can still... I love Parmesan and Grana, Padano and all those things. Now we're going into another tangent actually. But...
yeah, we should come back to our doodh malai.
But this one was hard. That's what I'm saying. It was actually like, not like gum, but you had to chew it. You had to work it in your mouth to just let it be.
Okay, interesting. So there's quite a bit that we don't know about the cheese, cheese making in India.
In India.
Yeah. All right.
Right.
So there's more that we can go on about, but I think we can wrap it up. This is the last episode of this season. And it kind of does, if you listen to the whole season, if you haven't heard it from episode 1, you should, because you'll get a sense of how contemporary Punjabis cook. And we are children of the 90s, so you'll kind of get to hear about things that we've grown up eating.
Also, I see that a lot of people, Indian food bloggers or people who are in that space, are bringing back things that they ate and they are bringing it to the world. Like Priya Krishna, for example, talking of dahi toast or whatever. So yeah, there's so many things that we grew up eating, like ghee, and that the world is still, adapting and all that. So that's very interesting, and it's good to look at it from that perspective, from somebody who's actually, lived through it. Not that we know like everything. We know we share our experience through this entire season, and that's what it's been a great journey for us.
Yeah.
To actually also understand why we eat what we eat, and why we like certain things right now, or we find familiar in other world cuisines. So it's been a great journey that way.
Yeah, it's been, I agree with you 100%. Because the seasonality and, why certain things were cooked a certain way to preserve their nutrition or to preserve their flavor or just to enjoy them while they are the best and in season. I think that's been quite interesting. It helps to pause and look back to understand what's been done and why we do it. So I hope everybody's enjoyed this. Did you have anything else to add about doodh malai?
No, I was just thinking of all the mithais that come out of doodh, but that I think we should keep for another day. Maybe the next season.
Yeah, I think doodh for me...
We'll pick up a few things.
Yeah, we started with one jingle, doodh hai wonderful. There's another one that I remember, which is Amul's jingle, ki सैर तो सिर्फ बहाना है पापा को कुल्फी जो खाना है. So let's go out for an Amul ice cream. And the Amul girl, like they've had a huge impact on our creative and,
they've been part of the pop culture space of 90s kids, and even they exist till now.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating,
Yeah.
So, a little bit about just one last thing I think from my side about that do jingle. It came out in 1996, I was just reading. And they wanted to make it because post-liberalization, when Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all these people had come into the space, kids were very attracted towards these sugary drinks. And the dairy board decided to make milk cool again. And that's how this entire campaign came. And it was a total hit, and it was in English. Hindi and English, and with people of all ages, with very familiar faces from the ad world, from the TV world, dancing and doing things, and it was just very heartening and sweet, and that sort of captured what you could do with it's just a part of our diet. It has always been a part of our diet. A lot of Indians still don't know that they're lactose intolerant. They could be lactose intolerant at this age, but they just love that, and that's just something that is part of our upbringing, I think, us 90s kids at least.
Yeah, it worked. It completely worked because in the summer holidays, going to my grandparents' house, they would stock colas. Like they would get, my grandfather would get a whole crate of Coca-Cola and keep it, and we would cool it in batches in the fridge, and we were only allowed like one a day, and if it's a bottle, maybe 3 or 4 of us, however many kids there were, would share it. But you were allowed endless supply of milk. Like there was no stopping you from drinking milk, right?
You're right.
And that worked. I will still.
कोई बच्चा मांगता था दूध ऐसे?
Like my brother was not very fond of it. मतलब, yeah, I guess कोई मांगता नहीं होगा. But कोई जब मिलता था तो पीना तो पड़ता था तो. You had to drink it, and I think that that jingle did its job because I would still prefer milk or something like that over a cola any day.
Yeah.
I don't know if it worked for everyone.
Good child. Kanika was a good child. So on that note, I think we should wrap up and just remind you that we are on SoundCloud, we are on Apple Podcast, we are on Spotify now. So wherever you listen to your podcast, subscribe to us, please rate us, please listen to the rest of the season, and write to us if you have any ideas about how you use milk or anything about any of the other episodes. If you have any ideas, let us know at info@kitchenpostcards.com. And anything else, Kanika?
No, we'll see you. We'll be back again soon. We'll take a short break. We'll think about what other delicious things we want to talk about, and we'll be back soon. So definitely subscribe. You don't want to miss out on what we'll be coming back with.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.